He was so afraid of losing referral partner. He started with no website. So we got his website working. I think we had published like 3 articles and he was getting 19,000 visits to his website every month. That gave him the freedom to step away from this very toxic situation that he had with this contractor. So we have to look at our business as a system. It's not just you, it's all these things together. You have to understand why. Why do you do this? What is your purpose? What is the experience that you want to create for other people? What's the promise? What makes you different? Well, I design beautiful homes. Okay, great. That's great. Everybody who's an architect should be able to say that. But what makes your homes different? What makes them better or unique? What are your values as well? Like, what kind of culture do you want to create? Even if it's just you still have a culture, right? You have to realize that this is a business. And if you want to have a healthy business, you got to do the work to make it healthy. Leadership is very important because
how can architects build a successful business in today's competitive environment? I'm Hamed, your host, and welcome to Birdflocks Talks, where we dive into actionable strategies and insights to help you as an architect thrive. Today, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Bryon McCartney, the CEO and co-founder of Archmark. With a rich background in branding, marketing, and business development, Bryon has helped many architectural firms transition from best-kept secrets to recognized leaders in their market. His expertise is rooted in 2 decades of experience, including work with high-profile clients like Unilever and General Motors, as well as leading creative agencies in Zurich, Switzerland. In this episode, we'll discuss the 6 key elements of a successful architecture business, including leadership, marketing, sales, operations, product services, and cash flow. Your support is crucial in helping us bring more valuable conversations like this to you. So please subscribe to our channel and join our community in Birdflocks platform. And without further ado, let's dive into Birdflocks Talks with Bryon McCartney. Bryon, thank you so much for accepting my invitation and welcome to Birdflocks Talks.
Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be here.
So, Bryon, I want to know your story first before starting. So, can you share your journey and how you became a business coach and marketing consultant, specifically for architects?
Yeah. So my career actually started in graphic design. I graduated university, moved to Chicago. I worked in Chicago during a time where computers were just coming into play in terms of print production and design and so forth. Through a series of events, I got involved in online marketing and branding. So I worked with Unilever, big multinational company, lots of brands that you would recognize are Unilever brands. And so I was involved in some early tests and experimentations on the web. As a result of that, I ended up moving to Switzerland and working for a large agency there. One of our key clients was General Motors. We were the largest internet agency in Switzerland at the time. And then after a few years of that, I decided that I wanted to be my own boss. And I started my first studio, focusing mostly on visual storytelling. So video, photography, production, did that for quite a while. And then, and my wife joined me as well during that experience. But then we came back to the US in 2012 and we had originally started a kind of a general purpose agency, internet marketing, social media, that type of stuff, blogging. And we weren't getting the traction that we had hoped to get. And so we worked with a business coach and started to explore different niches that we could focus on. And around that same time, we worked with an architect, and it was funny. It was kind of like all these pieces fell into place. When we lived in Switzerland, when we would travel, we would actually one of our big things. We came from Chicago. Chicago is a big architecture city, and we always enjoyed architecture. So when we moved to Switzerland, we realized that we were doing all these trips, going to these different cities, and we would gravitate towards experiencing architecture, right? And so so when we moved back, we worked with this architect, and we really enjoyed the experience of working with him. Realized that we had a lot of synergies in how we thought about our work and how they thought about their work. And then as a result of that, we decided to see, well, maybe other architects need help like he does. And so that got us involved in a local AIA chapter. We were in Florida at the time. And so we got very involved in local AIA. From there, it just kind of escalated. It was one thing after the other. I got to speak at the state AIA convention in Florida. Then I was featured on Entre Architect podcast, and then invited to speak to their community. And from there, we started getting more and more architecture clients. And not long after that, really decided that this was a good fit for us. And we also felt that, it was interesting because, a lot of people ask me, well, why architecture? I firmly believe that architects have a lot of impact on the world through the spaces they create. And so me being able to help architects means that more people get to experience architecture as a result. So, and hopefully have the same appreciation for it that I do, and are inspired by it, and come to appreciate it more.
I want to know a bit about the first experience that you had with an architect. What was the key learning that you had that led to the other projects and led to the sort of the path that you wanted to take, and then later co-founding the Archmark, for example?
So that the first client we had, it was interesting because he wasn't doing any marketing at all, and he was really struggling. He, it was funny. We would have these discussions about his business, and he would tell me things like, well, I have these clients that give me a lot of, the contractor that gives me a lot of business, but, they kind of call the shots. They're doing, they're telling me what I have to do and all this. And he was also just spending a lot of time like entertaining clients, entertaining referral partners. And, he would go, it was funny because his office was just down the hall from us. And so, I would go down there and I'd be like, hey, is he around today? And they'd be like, oh no, he's at lunch. And it would be like, 11 a.m. And I'd come back an hour later. I'm like, is he back? And they'd be like, no, he's still at lunch. And he'd be like at these lunches for like 2-3 hours. And he'd come back and I'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, you tell me you have these deadlines and these projects and you're spending all this time. And he's like, well, I kind of feel like I have to entertain these people to keep them happy. And I said, that's no way to run a business. And I think what I learned from him was that, he was so afraid of losing a referral partner, or he was really just consumed with this idea that, one small step would really take his business in a bad direction. And so what we did for him was we developed a new website. And then at the time, we were like, wouldn't it make a lot of sense for you to have some authoritative articles on your website? Talk about the problems that the clients you want to work with have, and, share your expertise and your experience. And so we did that. And he started with no website. He did not have a website when we started. He had been working with somebody else who didn't understand architecture, and he could never get anything right with them. So we got his website working. I think we had published like 3 articles, and he was getting 19,000 visits to his website every month. And just on, having a good website, talking about the topics that were interesting to his clients, he was getting way more traffic and way more inquiries than he had ever had before. And so that gave him the freedom to step away from this very toxic situation that he had with this contractor. And so for me, that was an important point, because actually helped this person not just to improve his business, but to improve his life. And so that kind of impact was very, I think, it was just a pivotal point for me to realize that if I could do this for more architects, I could have a lot more impact than just, another project. I could actually help improve their lives.
Yeah. You mentioned to that architect that this is not the best way to run a business. Yeah. So what is the best way to run a business? Recently, we put a comment on one of the articles that Birdflocks made. So you've mentioned that there are 6 key parts to a successful business: leadership, marketing, sales, operations, and overhead, product services, and cash flow. Yeah. So could you explain why these six elements are crucial for architectural firms and how they interconnect to create a thriving business?
So we have to look at our business as a system. It's a system. It's an interconnected system of things. It's not just you. It's all these things together. Leadership is very important because you have to understand why. Why do you do this? What is your purpose? What is the experience that you want to create for other people? What's the promise? What makes you different? I think this is where a lot of architects struggle. Well, I design beautiful homes. Okay, great. That's great. Everybody who's an architect should be able to say that. But what makes your homes different? What makes them better or unique? What are your values as well? Like, what kind of culture do you want to create? Even if it's just you still have a culture, right? So you have to understand that from a certain point of view. And it's really important, I think. And I get it. I didn't do these things when I started either, right? Like when I started my first business, I just started working, right? All I cared about was getting the next job. But at some point, you have to realize that this is a business. And if you want to have a healthy business, you gotta do the work to make it healthy and understand what you want from the business. And that's where that leadership component comes in. What is my plan? What are my goals? Why am I doing this? Right? So that's really important. Marketing, you don't have a business unless you have clients. And marketing is about bringing those clients in and helping them to see you as a valued resource, to help it to be more visible in the market. Whether that's through one-on-one networking or, taking people to lunch, or it's more about, providing a website that is going to attract the clients that you want to attract. Having a marketing system that not only brings those people in, but then also converts them into leads. That's the important part. A lot of people think like, oh, I got to do marketing. I got to do something on social media. I got to get out there. That's great. That's wonderful. Great you're on social media. But if they aren't coming back to your website, or if they aren't signing up to your email list, they're not leads. You have to have a list, and you have to have a go-to list that at any point in time, like if things get slow, you can activate that list and say, hey, I have an opening, or follow up with people who are interested and say, hey, where are you at with that idea? Are you ready to talk about it? So you have to have a list, and marketing is the way of building a list. So then we get into sales. Okay, so how do we get those people from lead to client, right? What does that process look like? What are we telling them in terms of how we're going to work with them, the experience they're going to have, the things that we're going to be able to do with them. What does that contract look like? Are we writing a new contract for every client? That would get really time consuming and be a lot of wasted energy, right? Let's build a template. Let's have a system for sales. How how are we qualifying? That's the other important part of sales. How are we qualifying those clients? We don't just want everybody as clients. They have to fit in with certain guidelines. So it's, and you can kind of see we're moving along a trajectory here, right? So we've gone from, just having clarity about where we want to take our business to understanding, how we're going to draw clients in, understanding who are the best clients and how we're going to sell to them. And just to be clear, sales is not sales. Sales is solutions. How are we presenting our capabilities for solving the problems they want to solve during our selling process? Then we get into onboarding and delivery. That's where we look at operations. How are our systems set up to make that smooth and easy for the client and also for our internal teams? What tools do we need? What workspace do we need? All that kind of things, all that plays into that. I see a lot of architects, they spend a lot of money on things that they don't end up using very much, especially when it comes to software and like high-end printers and things like that. You have to be very careful about overhead and your operations. You have to streamline at the start. You have to, and I tell this ties back into cash flow. You shouldn't be spending money you don't have, right? If you want that beautiful new printer in your office, you should be setting aside money for that and saving up for that, or getting a lease. I talk to so many architects who buy their laptops, they buy their equipment. I'm like, why aren't you leasing that? Why should you pay, that much money to outright to purchase something like that when you can basically lease it and get a new one in 3 years, right? So there's just smarter ways of managing the operations, the overhead. Then we get into products and services. So many architects are unclear about what they offer as a service, or, in some cases, you have the opportunity to sell products too, or productize your services, right? We did this with a client of ours. He was getting tons of inquiries, 500 inquiries in a year, way more than he had time to deal with. And in a lot of cases, these were inquiries that were not valuable projects that he wanted to work on. So we changed his process. We created a qualification questionnaire. And for people to get on his calendar, they have to pay. Go figure. They have to actually pay money to get a booked meeting with him. And they do because they see his work. They know he's good. So they are happy to pay that to, respect him and his time. And some of those people turn into clients, some of them don't, but he still gets paid. So, how can you set up your services so that you're getting paid for the work that you're doing, not doing free consultations, not doing, feasibility work, my God, going down to the county office and doing research before you even get the project? That's insane. So, how do we look at the process and how do we get paid for our time? How do we give clients opportunities to buy things from us passively too? Like, you could produce a workshop. You could, that is on demand. You could have a toolkit that you sell that helps clients manage their project, whatever it may be. There's a lot of great examples out there. There's somebody, I forget the name, but she does workshops. She sells workshops for clients to get ideas about what they can do with their home. These are ways of, taking your expertise and getting paid for it. You can do classes. You can go out and speak for crying out loud, whatever. So then we get into cash flow. So cash flow, I can't tell you how many architects I've talked to, and they tell me about this great project that they did. And then my question is always, was it profitable? And they go, Oh, I don't know. We got to manage our cash flow better. And what that means is, number one, you got to have different, many people have heard of profit first. Use a system like that. You don't have to use profit first, but use a system where before when you get income, you're setting aside money for taxes, for profit, hey, just take that 5% and put it into an account and don't touch it. That's your profit right there. Boom, you got it done. It's like, yes. Then you could say, yes, it was profitable, right? Then worry about, salary, expenses, and all the other things you need to do. But set that money aside. Have a rainy day fund. How much time can you afford to stay in business if things slow down, right? You got to have those kind of preparations. That is, those 6 components. That is what running a good, solid business should look like, right? At the very basic. I'm not talking like, hey, if you're Perkins and Will or, Gensler or something, you may have a different outlook on that. But if you're a small firm, these 6 components are very vital in terms of running a healthy, sustainable, resilient business. I think the sooner you realize that in your business journey, the better prepared and the healthier the business you're going to create.
I agree. So I think you explained it very perfectly. An overview of how to basically have a good, successful business. But let's go through it step by step so that I can ask more detailed questions. So in terms of leadership in architecture firms, how can firm owners effectively develop and communicate a strong mission, vision, and purpose to guide their team and shape their firm's direction?
Well, so I think there's a lot of resources out there on how to do that, right? We offer a strategic, just talking about Archmark, we offer a strategic planning process for architecture firms. It's a guided process we take you through where we help you define all the elements of a strategic plan. That includes, your mission, your vision, your values. It includes, what your 1 year, 3 year, 1 year, 5 year, 10-year outlook is. Where do you want to be as a firm? It helps you define as well your 90-day action plan. So, if you have a 10-year goal, what's that going to look like in 3 years? What's that going to look like in 1 year? Well, okay, if we're focusing on that first year, we got to focus on the next 90 days. That's about how much time we can kind of keep in our heads. What are we doing in those next 90 days to get to that 1 year goal? And then you review that every quarter, obviously, and every year to make sure that you're on track and that you're making the you're achieving the goals that you want to achieve. So you have to go through a process, and our process is just one of many. I mean, there's many examples of strategic planning processes out there. If you want to do it on your own, get a good, look for a book. Traction by Gino Wickman is a good place to start. That's where they talk about the vision traction organizer and how to run a small business. I would say that's a great resource. There are many others out there. The names are escaping me right now, but yeah, go, hire a coach like us to take you through that strategic planning process and hold you accountable. That's a great way to do it.
Going to the second stage or second key component of this successful business marketing strategies for architects. Can you share some strategies for architects to expand their reach through networking and maybe building an email list, for example, that you mentioned before?
Yeah, so I think, any good marketing plan should be strategic. It should not be tactical. What we see with a lot of architects is that, business gets slow, and they're instead of focusing on some of the other aspects of their business or developing their team, they start saying, well, how are we going to get new business? Let's go let's go put some projects on Instagram, or let's refresh our website, or maybe I'm going to, dress up my LinkedIn profile, right? It's very tactical. And so what ends up happening is they start playing tactical whack-a-mole. This is what I call it, tactical whack-a-mole. It's like, oh, let's try this tactic. Oh, now let's try this one. There's no strategic outlook and no strategic synergy for what they're doing. Here's where you start. First of all, you got to get your messaging right. And that starts with being very clear about who you are and very clear about who your client is, right? This is step number one. You got to have good messaging. You have to have clarity around who are you, what is your purpose, all those things I talked about under leadership. So that's where it starts. But then we got to get clear about who we want to talk to and attract as a client or as a project. Those two things are very important in terms of getting that messaging right. So the messaging, the website is a vehicle for the messaging. Social media is a vehicle for the messaging. Email is a vehicle for the messaging. That messaging has to be consistent throughout those components. But getting that website right is really important, because what you want to do with social media, what you want to do with email is bring people back to your website. Just having a LinkedIn page or an Instagram page or a house profile, those companies control those profiles, and they control who see them. Your website is the only place where you have control over your message, over how things look, how you present things, and how you capture information. So if you have visitors to your house profile, you don't get to see who does you don't always get to see who's visiting your house profile. Same on Instagram, unless they leave a comment or a like or a share. So you have to have control, and your website is the best place to control that. The strategy that we follow is a three-pronged strategy. It's called recognition, reputation, reach. Recognition is about that website. It's about your business listings, all the places you appear online. Are you creating a consistent message? Are you being visible online? Reputation is about sharing your expertise and your experience, typically through blog content, but you could also do a podcast or YouTube channel. But how are you sharing your expertise and experience, and how are you convincing people that you know what you know and do what you do? Third is the reach component. That's where we're looking at how are we building our network? Social media, email, networking, those are the three main components. You put all that together and you're going to have a pretty successful, you're going to have more inquiries, and eventually you're going to have a more successful firm. But it doesn't have to be complicated. Just focusing on some key things in your business, getting some foundational things right, like your website, sharing the right content on social media. We see a lot of people, like, on their blog and their social media, all they talk about is themselves. Oh, we got a new award. Oh, we won a new project. Oh, we hired somebody. That's great. And it's really great for your team and for your existing clients. And you should do that. But don't expect that to be exciting to somebody who doesn't know anything about you. The kind of content that somebody who doesn't know anything about you wants to see is, hey, are they answering the questions that I have? Are they helping me understand how this process works? So, you got to think about, like, who are you trying to attract? What are you trying to say to them? What's the next step that they need to take, right? Are they going to download something? Are they going to get on your email list? Are they going to subscribe to your, or are they going to buy a resource from you? You got to think this process through so that you're getting the right results.
Great advice. So the third key component for the successful business, sales and business development. Sales is often an area where architects feel less confident. So what are some key strategies for improving business development and closing more deals?
Yeah, I think, business development is really about being authentic, right? People talk about servant leadership. I think there's also, like, servant or solutions-based selling. And that's where I see, a lot of architects, They look at sales as this kind of evil thing, like, oh, I'm going to sound like a used car salesman or something like that. I hear that all the time. In fact, I don't want to sound salesy. Well, you don't have to. What you can do is you can talk about how what you do is going to help and impact the people that you're trying to help. And the more you do that, the more people are going to be convinced that, oh, hey, I need to talk to this person. This is a solution that I want. Sales is not about selling, it's not about wallet surgery, right? It's about providing a solution and showing your client how that solution matches up with the things they've told you through this process. So in your sales process, we call it island of happy, island of sad, or, well, we can change the island of happy is usually on the right, island of sad is on the left. And then you have a bridge. You are the bridge from the island of sad to the island of happy. So what does that mean? Well, the island of sad is all the things that they tell you they're struggling with. My house is too small. My kids are always fighting because they don't have enough room. I can never get any peace alone for myself. We only have one bathroom, right? Like these are all things that people will tell you about why they want a new home or why they want to design a custom home, right? I want to entertain more. I want to have people over. If it's an office space, well, we have people, they're sharing spaces and it's not productive. Everybody's talking over each other on the phone, and et cetera. Or we don't have any place where we can all gather. Like, these are all problems that people will talk about. That's the island of sad, right? And you want to give them space to be able to share that. So tell me what's wrong. Tell me what you want to fix. Tell me how you want to improve things. That's part of the discovery process. What on the other side, though, you want to also say, well, how do you see this helping you? How do you see this? What would be ideal for you? An ideal outcome if we were to work together. You gather these two parts of the information, and then you can focus on showing them how your services, how what you do is going to help them go from that island of sad to that island of happy. That's the best way to sell, because it's not about, we've got all these features and, you're going to get a new, grow faucet in your bathroom or in your kitchen or wherever. It's not about talking about all the details of the features and things. It's talking about the benefits. How's it going to impact their lives? Now, in the sales process, you also have to put numbers behind that, right? But there's, when somebody has a problem that is important to them, they're willing to pay to solve that problem. And so the more you make it about the solution and showing them how this is going to solve things, the more they're going to be accepting of that final number. And there's more subtlety to it. I don't think we have time for all that, but keep your sales about their problem, not about what you do or how, they're going to have the, Gucci leather or whatever, you know what I mean? It's not about the details of the features. It's about the benefits that you're going to provide. Keep it around that.
Okay, let's go to another key component, operation and overhead management. So in your opinion, how can firms create a work environment that supports productivity and creativity while managing cost effectively?
Well, I think if you have staff, when I talk to a lot of architects, I hear from them that there's a desire to want to develop staff, right? But then I also hear that there are a lot of barriers to doing that. Number one, I hear a lot of architects complaining that, I'm worried that if I spend all this time training somebody, then they're gonna leave, right? I've also heard from others that, we're just too busy, right? You're never too busy to develop your team. And if you're not developing your team, guess what? They're going to get bored and they're going to leave anyway. You have to invest in your team. If you're going to have a team, if you're going to take the responsibility and the risk of having your own team, then you have to be responsible about how you manage that team. Now, some architects realize this and they say that's not for me, and they outsource things. And I highly recommend that you consider outsourcing to like an agency. My good friend Aya Schlachter, she has MGS Global. It's a great firm for outsourcing for architects. There are others out there. Outsourcing is a great way to take things off of your plate so that you can focus as a firm leader on the things that you need to be doing. But it's really important that if you are going to have staff, that you take the responsibility for developing those staff members. And yes, there is a risk that they may leave someday. But the happier they are working for you, the less likely they are in leaving. And happiness has to do with them learning and developing as an architect. That's really important. You should be supporting young architects in their quest to become licensed. You should be encouraging that and helping them. You should provide resources to help them learn about design and software and so forth. That's about being a responsible business owner.
Totally agree. Going to the next component. So in your opinion, you already mentioned some of these services, but what are some innovative service models that architecture firms can adopt to better serve their clients and enhance profitability, and how they can ensure that these services are aligned with market demands?
Yeah, it's always a tricky thing. I've seen architects invest in, things and they don't pan out. So it's never, it's always difficult to understand or anticipate what the market might want. I think one of the best ways to figure that out is to, before you go and invest a lot of money in something, actually do some interviews with people. See if the product or the service that you are offering or want to offer is actually of interest to the type of people that you would normally sell it to. So, actually talking to people before you take action is really important, especially when there's money involved and there's risk involved. We talk about in marketing and in productizing services, a process called customer development interviews. It's really a process of understanding, like, hey, I have this solution. Do people really have the problem that this solution solves, and what are they willing to pay for it, right? Because you might have a great solution, but people may not be willing to pay for it. They may not be motivated to pay for it or pay enough for it. So you have to, before you go and start doing things that are going to require a lot of time and effort, try to get an understanding of who that ideal client is you're selling to and whether or not they are going to want that product. I think that's very important. When it comes to the opportunities for architects, I think they're vast, actually. I know architects who create training tools for other architects. I've seen also toolkits, business process toolkits, bookkeeping, things like that. A lot of the firms, I would assume even you guys are the same. A lot of architects are kind of trying to think of ways to solve problems that architects have already. So you might be able to offer something like that. But if you're really set on serving an audience, a clear demographic or whatever, you have to think about your services, your products, your services. It's like a product ladder, right? And we call it a product ladder. So the first rung is going to be something easy and simple that they can buy at a low cost. It might be a consultation. It might be a toolkit. Might be a webinar that they can watch on demand, like a video series, something like that. But it should be low cost, and it should be something that is going to help them self-identify as somebody that is needs your next service, right? So next service is usually going to be like a low cost consultation, something that's a little bit more expensive, maybe in the $400 to $1,500 range if you're a residential architect, like I don't know, not like the multi-million dollar homes, but maybe something more reasonable, like suburbs of Manhattan or a large city, something like that, where you have affluent suburbs and people are interested in the possibility of a custom home. So you might have something like a low-cost consultation that helps you qualify people, helps you get paid for those initial services, and then from there, obviously, you're gonna scale up to a project, right? And that's going to depend more on the specific demands of the project and what they want. But if somebody has bought from you before, they're more likely to buy from you again. That's as long as they've had a good experience. And so that product ladder helps ease them into that process. Make sense?
Yep. That makes sense. So we're reaching to the last component, which is cash flow management. So I want to specifically talk about the challenges that smaller firms are facing in terms of cash flow management. What strategies do you recommend for managing finances and ensuring consistent revenue growth, especially for smaller firms?
Well, I think consistency is really about visibility as well, right? Because if you're not visible in the market, if you're not marketing, if you're not getting out there and talking to people, you're not going to have that consistency. So what I recommend, especially for startup firms, is number one, focus on building your network, right? Make sure that you have a good network of people. If you get one contractor starting to refer things to you, that's great. Where's the next referral coming from, right? Like referrals aren't reliable. So you need more than one person to be helping you get new business. You also need, when you do a project with a client, you need to develop that client into an evangelist for you. If they're really happy with the work that you did, try to encourage them to share that with their friends and their family, and help other people understand how you can help them. Referrals are really going to be your bread and butter, especially in the early years. As you're able to, I recommend that if you're starting up a firm, you need to have a good website. Even if it's just a one-page website, you need to kind of just communicate, what it is you do, why people should care, and how do they move forward with you, right? What's the first step? You need to talk a little bit about yourself, your qualifications, if you have testimonials, if you've worked for, maybe bigger firms and you did notable projects with them, and you're able to, you should list those projects on your website. Say, hey, I did these under a different firm, but this is the work I'm capable of doing. If you don't have a great portfolio, then show your ideas, show your concepts, show your design exploration, show how you work, right? You don't have to necessarily have hundreds of finished project photographs in order to have a good website. And then if you're starting out and you haven't really established yourself at all, look for people who can be those first adopters, right? Look for those people who are like, well, I'm not sure, but I would like to work with an architect. I want to kind of explore that. Great. You can, if you can afford to, offer that first client, a discount, or offer them something in exchange for, giving you that opportunity. Maybe at the end of the project, you're adding something on or something like that. I don't know. There's different ways to think about that. But, especially when you're starting out, I think, it's okay to incentivize. It's okay to discount potentially. You should always be clear about what the discount is and why they're getting it. You should just say, oh, here's my low price. You should say like, here's my normal price. Here's what I'm doing for you because you're early adopter. You're somebody that's going to help me out. Also, look for champions. Referrals are great, but there's also people out there who are selling to the clients that you want to get in front of, right? So I always use the example like, here in the US, we have like Crate and Barrel and Sur La Table and Williams Sonoma. And sometimes these people, they'll invite experts in to do workshops for their client base. Well, that's a perfect opportunity for an architect to get in and do a little workshop or a presentation on, how to design a great home, or how to work with an architect, or how to hire an architect, whatever it may be. But that's it. Look for those kind of opportunities to get yourself out there and in front of the audience that you want. And focusing on champions, people who are already selling to your audience, is a great way to do that. Car dealerships, right? Like high-end car, go down to the BMW dealer, go down to the Tesla dealer, right? See like, hey, could we offer a program for your clients? I have a client, and she did a home in Oregon, and the lender happened to go see this home as part of, I guess, the financing program or something like that, loan program. She saw the home and she called the architect and she said, "Oh my God, this is an amazing home. We don't see homes like this in this area very often." And she's like, "It's just such a great example." And she was just calling her to say, "Wow, great job." Well, the architect is telling me, we're having a coaching session. The architect is telling me this. And I said to her, I said, "You need to call that person right now. And you need to ask her, hey, could we do a webinar for your clients?" And she was like, "Oh my God, that's a great idea." She called the banker back, and the banker was ecstatic. She was like, "Oh my God, you would do that? That's amazing." She's like, "Yes, I have a list of clients that are perfect for this." And so they're putting together a webinar to get this architect in front of this person's clients. And that's a great opportunity. So look for those kind of opportunities, whether you're starting out or whether you're established. That's a great way to get in front of the people you want to get in front of.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk about cash flow much there, but I think cash flow is really about getting consistency in your pipeline, right? I think that's the number one struggle for architects is consistency, like reliable cash flow. Another great solution for that is to create. We have a client who's done this. He calls it concierge architecture. He has clients, so he works primarily in commercial, and he has clients who have, they're local entrepreneurs, local developers, and they have multiple projects, that they need to address at one time. And so this architect will basically propose to them, "Listen, I can handle all your work, but we're going to do it a little bit differently." He basically creates a scope of work, what he expects they'll need within a time frame, usually 2 years. It could be longer, but he'll create a scope of work based on the number of projects and where they need to be and what needs to be done. And then he will create a payment plan for that client that is it's paid every month. It's a fixed rate over that period of time. And those projects, if he gets 2 of those projects a year, if he has 2 of those projects in a year, that usually will cover all of his expenses and salary for his entire team. So that's look for those kind of opportunities, right? Like, how can I get that consistent cash flow? But yeah.
Bryon, do you also have a sort of example of a firm that successfully applied these principles to transform their business?
Yeah, I mean, so to different degrees, right? Because not every client is the same for us, but one of our clients, Chris Novelli, is applying these principles. We've been working with him now, I think just over a year. Chris is applying these principles. He also has a YouTube channel that he started, and we've been helping him with that. And he's having quite a bit of success with that. The inquiries that he's getting now, as compared to before, are much better. So they're much more in alignment with the type of work that he wants to do. He's having more success with clients. Clients now recognize him. They understand. They've already read a lot about him, or seen him on his videos, or heard his podcasts. So yeah, he's experiencing some good success from this. We have another one, Roderick Anderson in Costa Rica. Roderick specializes in designing very high-end homes in Costa Rica, Dominican Republic. He's now he gets, I don't know, probably 70-80% of his leads are coming through online sources that we've helped them create. His website. He also gets recognized a lot by other by champions. So a lot of people reach out to him, wanting to kind of partner with him, and present him as a go-to architect for projects in Costa Rica. So yeah, I mean, we see, when these I think when these things are done right and executed well, we definitely see the results for our clients. And our goal, I think, with our clients is to help them get to a certain level of success where they don't need us anymore, right? Like, we want to get them to a point where, like, hey, I've built my recognition, I've built my reputation, I've built my reach, and now I'm at a point where, I can kind of take it from here and continue to succeed. We had that situation with our client in Sarasota, the one I talked about, had the concierge architecture approach. We got to a point where we'd helped him win several high profile projects. He's working more in commercial. And he got to the point where he was so busy. He's like, we kind of, I'm getting a lot of repeat clients now. I'm getting a lot of referrals from those clients that I'm having. It's the kind of work that he wants to do. So we said, great, let us know if you need more help. Now it's more about like updating his website and things like that. So he's kind of like, fly bird, fly, So, and I'm happy to have those kind of successes, because it means we're doing our job. And, it's not always easy, right? Because I think sometimes a lot of architects come to us and they have these, they've read something online or they've seen something somewhere. And it's like, we have to have a discussion about how we're going to work together, and, whether that's going to be a good fit for them. And, sometimes people are like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm glad to have you guys take that on for me. And sometimes it's like, no, we have our own ideas about what might work. And that's fine. I'm never going to, I'm just happy that more architects are thinking about branding and marketing, because that's, for a long time now, I think architects have been behind other professional services. And, I think I see that more architects are starting to wake up and understand that branding and marketing are an important part of running their business as well.
Bryon, I want to know about your future plans. You can also talk about Archmark. Archmark's future plan, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think Archmark is in a really good spot where, we have a good base of clients. We are consistently attracting new clients and bringing new ones on board periodically. Archmark was never intended to be a large firm. It was, our goal is, I think our max capacity in terms of clients is 20 clients at a time. I think we're currently around 16. And, we like to be able to have a kind of like a not a full slate of clients because it gives us more time to spend with our clients. It allows us to spend more, give them more attention. And as long as we're profitable, I think we're going to be happy with that. So our goals at Archmark are just to more work on refining our systems and adapting, because there are changes. That SEO is changing. LinkedIn has changed a lot. That can be an important platform for architects, although most of them don't realize it's important. Email has gone through some changes as well. So, our goal is to kind of keep adapting and improving our systems so that we can continue to have success for architects. I think for me personally, while I'll always be involved in Archmark, my goal over the next year or two is to kind of focus more on coaching and working directly with firm owners, helping them to map out these 6 areas of business and to help them, find more success, not only in their work, but in their lives. Because I think that's something that I've seen a lot of, people sacrificing time with family and, just personal happiness to have a design firm. And that's not how it should be. So I'm kind of on a mission to help architects improve their lives and their business.
And I'm sure you will do it. I wish you success in this path. Like what Dutch people are always saying, huge success with this journey that you are already on. I want to thank you so much, Bryon, for everything that you shared with us, for these 6 important key parts of having a successful business. I already learned a lot. I enjoyed talking to you very much.
Yeah, I really appreciate you inviting me. I'm really happy to be part of this, and I'm always happy to talk to anyone that wants to have a conversation around how we can help improve the businesses and lives of architects. If anybody wants to reach me or wants to get in touch with me, the best place to do that is just go to archmark.co. ARCHMARK.co, and you can reach out to me through our website, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I love to get connections on LinkedIn. Help me grow my connections on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Thanks again, Bryon, for joining Birdflocks Talks, and thanks for everything again.
Thank you.